I know that sounds really silly, but it's so easy to get bogged down by the spam when you're opening up to like global applications. You're going to get a ton of just like automatic applications, right? And so you want to put something in your application that's going to help you filter that, or you will absolutely go insane. I promise you. So my favorite thing is to throw the word octopus in there, and like have them mention that at some point in their reply. I know it sounds so silly. You'll see people doing that and it seems kind of ridiculous, but I swear it'll help you stay sane.
Welcome to another episode of Fun Flip Repeat. I am your private money lender, Joel Cadlick, and with me today is Olivia Martindale. And I am super excited because Olivia is actually the portfolio manager for fixed lending. So if you've ever invested or borrowed money, done a deal with fixed lending in any capacity, you have had the opportunity to either meet her or talk to her on the phone or engage with her via email. She is the one who keeps it all together and keeps the engine running. So Olivia was kind enough to give us her time to come on here because amongst a number of things, Olivia has a few superpowers. And one of her superpowers is creating systems and processes for businesses that she can also take and then download and delegate. And that is a tremendous superpower that I've obviously been able to see personally. Olivia and I have been working together for many years now, and it's been awesome. And she has also had the knowledge and skills and ability to onboard many different people and key people into the business and businesses that she's been a part of. And some of that has been working with VAs, which is a virtual assistant. And that's what we're going to be focusing on today. And that's what I'm really excited about because this episode in particular is going to be absolutely packed full of just value add content. So if you're an entrepreneur, flipper, you're building businesses in any way, knowing and understanding to being able to bring people into your organization and working with VAs is such a critical skill. So Olivia is basically just going to give it all away. She's an open book. She's a go-giver, just like we try to be on this podcast. So man, super excited. That was a super long intro, but I'm excited about this topic. So Olivia, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I was so excited to be here. This is a topic that like we've talked about a lot, Joel, and every time it comes up, I'm so passionate about it. Every time I get a chance to talk about it, I love to talk about it because honestly, there's so much information out there and I see people just honestly doing it wrong a lot of the times just because there's like a stigma around VAs and around what that process should look like. And I have very strong opinions on how it can be done really, really well. And so I'm really excited to share a lot about that.
Bam. Excellent. Okay, so let's get into it. First question. What first made you start working with VAs?
That's a really good question. So I think the first thing that made me start working with VAs was that there were holes in the business that needed to be filled. And when you are kind of starting out and you've got holes in the business that need to be filled, hiring someone local in person can sometimes not fit in your budget, honestly. Like that's the truth of it, right? That's often why we're hiring VAs. And when there's a position that doesn't need to be in person, being able to open that up to a virtual position is totally like world changing, right? Because the pool that you have to choose from is so much larger and you have such a better chance of getting someone that's really going to fit your team and fit your needs. And I got to see that, I honestly started as a virtual employee doing property management. It was like the first thing I did in real estate was virtual property management. So I have the perspective of actually
I always forget that.
Yeah, I know. So I have the perspective of both sides of it, right? I've been on both sides of it. So, having that experience and knowing how I showed up and how that really launched my career and that side of things made me very open to the idea, whereas other people might be a little bit more hesitant. But I do think like in this day and age, people are generally a lot more open to it. You're seeing a lot more virtual positions since COVID for sure. But yeah, I mean, when there's holes in the business that need to be filled, you're always going to want to look for where's my largest pool because you want to get the best candidate that you can for your budget and for your team. And so opening that up to virtual just opens up a world of possibilities for that.
I love that. So yeah, you can hire, your talent is now global. That's awesome. What are your top 3 tips for hiring the right VA?
Yeah, yeah. So, top 3 tips for hiring the right VA. Number 1, you definitely want to make sure that your application is going to filter out spam. I know that sounds really silly, but it's so easy to get bogged down by the
Mm,
spam when you're opening up to like global applications. You're going to get a ton of just like automatic applications, right? And so you want to put something in your application that's going to help you filter that, or you will absolutely go insane. I promise you. So, my favorite thing is to throw the word octopus in there, and like have them mention that at some point in their reply. I know it sounds so silly. You'll see people doing that and it seems kind of ridiculous, but I swear it'll help you stay sane. Number 2 is to
what do you
do
mean by that? Can you break that down though? So
yeah.
when you're saying in the application, you want them to respond octopus like in the subject line or something like that, or
Yeah, so I will, in the job description, maybe
okay,
halfway or 3/4 of the way down, I will
yeah,
throw in a sentence that says, add the word octopus to your reply,
oh,
And
that's
so
awesome.
then if somebody doesn't add the word octopus to their reply, I'm not even
Yeah,
going to look at it because either one, they didn't take the time to read the job description, or two, they don't know how to follow directions, right?
oh, so good,
Neither people do I want on my team, right? So
absolutely,
it's a silly little thing, but it's super helpful.
yeah, that's
And it's
awesome.
gonna save you a ton of time, right? And then number 2 would be have a multi-step process. Even if this is a smaller position at your company, having a multi-step process is so important. So the process we usually follow when I'm doing hiring is we'll have the initial response. So they have to put the word octopus in their response, right? Then we're going to look at their application, kind of basic review. And I'm going to then send them assessments before we even do an interview. So if I like their application, it looks like they're going to meet the requirements, I'm going to send them some sort of assessment. You can Google and find free assessments for pretty much anything you want to assess for. Like if this
Okay.
person's going to be doing a lot of data entry, you want them to take an Excel assessment, right?
Mm,
If and this is usually in the beginning, I'm looking at hard skills first, right? Which hard skills are teachable, so keep that in mind too. But test for some sort of hard skill. Like if they're going to be doing a lot of phone calls, what are their listening skills? What are their customer service skills? Survey Monkey has some good things,
mm,
but if you just Google like free employee assessments, you can find a ton of options out there. So don't overwhelm them, send
okay.
them one, maybe two. And then if they complete those assessments, they're obviously interested. Now, if the responses are good to the assessments, now I'm going to do a first round interview. And during that interview, it's just a basic interview. I'm going to assess their hard skills, their experience. But what I'm really looking for is what is their personality match, right? Are they going to fit in with
Mm,
me? Are they fit in with my team? Is the personality right for the position? There's lots of personalities out there. Some of them are great for certain positions and not so great for others. And so then at that point, if I'm feeling like they're a good fit, I'm going to send them a deeper personality assessment. My favorite is the Big Five, Jordan Peterson's Understand Myself. So that one is really great because you're going to see where they rank on some big things like intelligence, openness to experience, volatility, all of those things. And what I'm looking for
mm,
there is I'm looking for how do they fill gaps and how do they match energy, right? So if I rank highly volatile, right, and I am hiring somebody to be my personal assistant, I need someone that's not volatile, right?
sure,
But at
absolutely.
the same time, right? But at the same time, if I'm open to experience, right, I need someone who's also highly open to experience. Because if they aren't, we're not going to vibe well. We're not going to create ideas. We're not going to be doing good things. So you have to look at those things and like, where do I need someone to complement me? And where do I need someone to contrast me? And then at that
Absolutely.
point, you're probably going to do a final interview. And usually you're only going to have one or two people that make it to that point, and you're going to make your final decision. Biggest advice is take your time, hire right, and you only have to hire once, right? So take your time for sure.
That's awesome. So there's so much gold right there. So I just wanted to say to for anyone listening is we will drop in the show notes the link for SurveyMonkey and Jordan Peterson's personality test as well. I will leave those in the show notes for you too. So those are awesome links. Really, really good value adds there. So how do you handle SOPs? Do you create them yourselves or do you have the VAs like document the process and then you go back through and then create the SOPs together? How does that look?
Yeah, so there's usually a mixture of those things happening. And it depends on the role and how developed the position is at the time that you're hiring. I think the number one mistake I've made in the past is wanting everything to be perfect before I hire the person. So I want a pretty package that I can hand this VA, whatever role they're filling, and they can just take it and run with it, and it's completely done. And yes, in an ideal world, that's wonderful. But
Sure.
Justin, who we work with, actually pointed out to me one day, he was like, Olivia, isn't the right person somebody who's going to be able to adapt and overcome obstacles? It's like, yes, of course,
Mm,
that's the right person, no matter what you're hiring them for, right? And so you don't have to have a perfect package. Yes, you want to have tools and you want to set your hire up for success. And at the same time, we're in real estate, we're in a dynamic industry. They need to be able to adapt and overcome and solve problems and create solutions. And so if the package is not 100% correct, all that's going to do is give them the opportunity to do that and to
mm,
show you if they can actually succeed in that way. And so what I like to do is at least, of course, have the core responsibility SOPs completed or at least 90% there, right? So that you can train, get them some good foundations. But then I usually have a list of like a handful of things. It's like, I haven't gotten the time to like set up SOPs for this. The system's honestly not 100% where it needs to be. And I know from our interviews that they have really good skills in this area. You know,
mm.
maybe it has to do with like data entry processes, right?
Yep.
And I tend to find data entry very mundane, but they love it, right? So I'm going to let them take that and run with it and give them a sense of accountability and a sense of contributing to the company and the business and let them create that SOP. And of course, I'm going to review it and we're going to collaborate on it to get a final version that's exactly what I want it to be. But you want to be able to hand them those projects at the same time. So it's not the best answer, but like it really is a balance of
I
you want to
love it.
set them up for,
No, I love it.
right?
100%.
But you
Yes.
want to leave room for them to come in and take ownership of something as well.
No, bam. That's like the perfect answer because you could also like kill yourself, right? You're going to get in, it's like this whole analysis paralysis thing, right? You kill yourself. You're going
Absolutely.
to try and make it perfect. You're going to go over and over and over and over. Then you're going to find out you're going to have to rework it anyways. And then that rework
Yep.
is just a time suck and it's not fun. So I really, really like that. And I really like that balance because two really important things that you said that stuck out to me at least is make sure that you're setting them up for success. So don't just like throw them into the fire and be like, well, they should be able to figure it out, period. That's not healthy. That's not being a good steward. That's not being, good to anybody, but also don't try and overdo it, like you said as well. Like there's that healthy balance. I think that's exactly right. That's easier said than done, but obviously you've had a lot of experience, and don't let that overwhelm you. Speaking to anyone who's listening, don't let that overwhelm you. Just go for it, and over time it gets easier and easier. With the right person, you can figure that out together, and just be open and honest, and it'll definitely come together. Just trust the process for sure. So that's awesome. So here's
And I
another.
will say, I
Go
will
ahead.
say just real quick, anyone who doesn't know, SOP stands for Standard Operating Procedure. So it's just a document that says, here's our standards for how we're going to do a specific task. And my biggest like discovery ever is if you use Loom, you can record a Loom video of you doing something. Make sure you're speaking each step as you say it out loud.
Mm,
Then you can copy the recording transcript. You could also use Teams to do this. Teams does a recording transcript. Copy that transcript, paste it into Chat GPT, and tell it to create an SOP from it, and it'll knock it out for you. So if you're not a systems or operations person, like that's the hack for you.
Bam. That's awesome. Loom, we'll put in the show notes as well. We're going to have a lengthy show notes by the end of this episode. So here's a big one. Okay. And I think this is where you touched on this in the beginning of the episode, but I think this is where it can be daunting and you can see people not doing it correctly. Not sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally. How do you
Mhm.
build culture and trust remotely?
The thing I'm the most passionate about ever, right? And it's really is the most important question in this day and age. Whether you're hiring VAs or not, you're most likely don't have a brick and mortar. You're most likely working very virtually, even with your people that are boots on the ground, right? So being able to build culture and rapport with the people you're working with virtually is like a huge obstacle we're having to overcome, right?
Mm.
My number one recommendation is make sure you're doing one-on-ones. And I will be honest, there have been times I have let my one-on-one slip. But what I mean by one-on-one is not let's have a 15-minute meeting to talk about everything you need to get done today. No, I mean once a month, have a 30-minute meeting with everyone who you are managing. And that meeting is a high level, it's about them. And so what you want them to do is you want to send them a list, a short bullet point list of things you want them to come prepared to that meeting to discuss. And the things you want them to come prepared to that meeting to discuss is what are the big things you're struggling with right now? Like, what are we doing wrong? Give me feedback. How can I be better? How can I help you? What are your goals right now? Right? I want to hear about what your professional goals are. I want to hear about what your personal goals are. What is catching your interest? What are you reading? Those types of things. And you can brainstorm with ChatGPT, but come up with questions that are going to make sense for your company culture. But the goal of that one-on-one is to really connect with each person and understand who they are and what their goals are, what motivates them, and to allow them to have that attention, right? Those are things that happen naturally in like a brick and mortar workplace. You just have these little conversations that we have to be more intentional about when we're doing virtual um, business. And so
Sure.
and it doesn't have to be every week. Like I said, once a month, is important. And then making sure you do have a weekly team call. So if that's just you and one VA, then you do want to have that weekly touch base. But that weekly touch base is a little bit different. So you're going to want to have like the first 15 minutes just kind of be chat time, but you want to structure that. So one of my favorite things to do is high low. Actually stole that from our youth group at church is what we used to do with the youth kids. But you
Okay.
want to see what your high point of the week was and what your low point of the week was. And it may be related to work, it may not be. But it's just really good. It helps you get insight on how the week's going. It lets everyone have a chance to kind of vent any frustration, but then also celebrate wins and celebrate what's going really well. So it just builds a lot of rapport. You can also do a core values moment. So you should have your core values for your company. It's great to touch base on those weekly and say, okay, we like to spin a wheel, and it picks a core value of the week. And we discuss,
Yeah.
hey, how did we do massive imperfect action this week or whatever? Right. So it's really fun to connect in that way. It's also really great to read a book together, right? To have a book that is focusing on something you want to build and grow in the company, or a particular soft skill that you're looking at, and to be discussing that on a weekly basis and keep it simple. Don't try to read 100 pages a week, 10, 20 pages a week, short little 5-minute discussion, very manageable. So incorporate some of those things into like a short 15, 20-minute conversation, and then dive in to making sure you're reviewing your weekly numbers. Make sure you have a scorecard that they have specific numbers that are accountable for every week, and you have specific numbers you're accountable for every week. That is so important. You don't want to have meetings where it's only talking about them and what they're accountable for. You need to set that example, and you need to have the numbers you're accountable for. You need to be talking about your numbers first to set that example for them. Have rocks, really goals that they're accountable for. Same for you. Talk about the progress toward those. And then do IDS, identify, discuss, and solve. So they can bring up any issue that they notice in the company and you guys can talk about it together. And depending on how many people you have on your team, this meeting could be 30 minutes to an hour and a half. And I know that feels like a lot to do on a weekly basis, but it's literally the most valuable thing you can do for your team. And so I highly recommend doing those things. So the weekly IDS call is what we usually call it, and then a monthly one-on-one. And then if you need to have a daily huddle to talk about just day-to-day mundane things, definitely throw that in there. But the weekly call and the monthly one-on-one are the most important.
Okay. I love it. So much to unpack there. So we're definitely going to have you back on to do some more of these, which is awesome. And some of the stuff you were referencing, and we'll also put in the show notes, is EOS traction, which is how we run some of our stuff. And we've talked about that on the podcast too, is the entrepreneur operating system. But I think some of the stuff that you highlighted too is really just like keeping it fun, keeping it engaged, right? Doing the book, spinning the wheel, talking about core values, the high low. Those are really creative yet simple things, and that go a really long way. And obviously, I've been able to witness those things within the business that you've implemented, and it's just been awesome. And it really has been a tremendous culture builder, and it's fun to be a part of. So I can definitely attest that it works and it is fun. And be creative is what I would say. You're obviously really, really good at that. And thank goodness, because otherwise it'd be super boring and not so fun. So, but yeah, be creative, get outside your comfort zone and, do something fun like spin the wheel and stuff like Olivia's referencing. You can't be too silly. If you think it's silly, it's probably something you should try out. And that's totally awesome and okay. So
Meme of the week. I don't know why. Meme
yes,
of the week
yes. Meme of the
became
week is awesome.
I thought meme of the week was ridiculous, but it became everyone's favorite thing. So just like Joel said, yeah, just try things out. You never know what's gonna stick, you know?
Yeah, meme of the week is awesome. Okay. So what are the most valuable tasks you could start, like you would start to delegate? So, because it could be a little hard to know where to start. Like, how do I begin? Where should I start? How do I, where do I even kickstart this?
Yeah. So the specific task is going to depend so much on like your company, what specifically you're doing, how you're kind of running it now, what systems and processes you're using. Diving into specifics might be a little bit hard with more of a generic answer, but I can tell you how to figure out those things. So, to figure out what you need to delegate, the first thing you should do is you should be tracking your time. And you don't have to do this every single day, but do it for, a couple of days or a week, depending on like how different your days tend to look. If your days tend to be very, very different, I definitely recommend doing it for a whole week. If your days tend to be pretty much the same, you could probably get away with doing it for a day or two. But you're going to track every single thing you do. So, like, if you make a 3-minute phone call, write down the 3-minute phone call, right? And then I want you to look at what are the things that are taking up the most time and kind of bullet point those out. And then I want you to look at that list of the things that are like taking the most time and which ones are you the best person to be doing that. So, right, if you are doing wholesaling, you're probably the best person right now if you haven't hired anybody yet. You're probably the best person to be making calls to potential sellers, right? But you maybe aren't the best person to be doing cold calls. Maybe that's what you need. Or maybe you're not the best person to be doing your social media posts. Or maybe you're not the best person to be tracking your marketing, right? So, which things are taking up the most time? And then which ones are you the best person to be doing? And be honest with yourself, you know? And then at the same time, which things are the most draining? And they're usually the things that you're not the best person to be doing in the first place. Those are usually going to be the same things, right? And those are the things you're going to want to delegate first, right? Because the whole goal of delegation is for you to have more time and energy to spend on what you're best at. So, whatever you're delegating needs to be the things that you're not the best person to do. Because in your company, we have this saying all the time: right person, right seat. You want everyone to be the right person in the right seat, and that
Yes.
includes you. So, you've got to be honest with yourself about what you're really the best at. And maybe you are building a wholesaling business, and maybe you honestly aren't the best person to be calling potential sellers. Maybe you are more operationally minded. Most likely not, but maybe you are, right? And so maybe it makes more sense for you to get an acquisitions person first, right? So it's going to depend so much on you and what you're trying to build, but that's kind of the formula to figure that out.
Love it. What do people usually get wrong when trying to delegate?
Ooh, that's such a good question. What do people usually get wrong when they're trying to delegate? I think the number one thing is they don't prepare. So they don't prepare and they don't set expectations. They just kind of want to get things off their plate. And so they throw them at somebody, right? And that's really not setting someone up for success. I understand it. Like, it can be so stressful. And generally, you're waiting until you're like so overwhelmed that you can hardly function before you're delegating, right? And so by the time you get there, you just want to kind of throw it at somebody and just say, get it done. But the problem with that is you're going to end up micromanaging because it's not going to get done right. It's not going to get done on time. You're not setting expectations. The best way you can delegate is to set expectations. So there's a formula I've used in the past that's like really helpful when I'm delegating something. And I ask the person I'm delegating to, is this a 1, 2, or a 3? Right? There's a few different ways you can do it, but 1, 2, or a 3, right? A 3 is, I understand how to do this task completely. I don't need any support. I'm doing great, right? A 2 is, well, I have a gist. I have maybe the hard skills to do this, but I've never really done this specific thing before. I'm going to need a little bit of support on it. And a 1 is, I have no idea how to do this. You're going to have to really help me, right? It's a really easy system for the person you're delegating to be able to say, hey, this is how much support and this is how much help I need, and for them to let you know that. And so it's a great easy system that doesn't require too much thought or effort. But then the long-term solution to that is to delegate before you're so overwhelmed, right? So
Yes.
to really prepare in advance and to delegate ahead of time, right? Give yourself cushion. Delegate before you actually have to.
That's right.
And it's a hard line to kind of get the hang of, right? Because you don't want to delegate way too soon and then have too much expenses for where your business is at, right? But you don't want to wait so long that you can't delegate well. And so figuring out that middle line is kind of comes with experience, honestly, just like feeling it out. But whenever it's kind of like the opposite of watering plants. Somebody told me once, like, when you water a plant, when you think it needs to be watered, wait like 3 days and then water it, right? It's the opposite. Um, the second you start thinking you're going to need to delegate, start delegating. Don't wait, a few weeks. Don't wait a few months. The second you feel that like really need to delegate, start it, because it's going to take you longer than you think. And by the time you like really have to have those things delegated to function, they'll be taken care of.
Yeah, I really like that a lot. And I think that's true in every aspect in business. And it's really, really difficult, if I'm being honest, right? Because it's the notion of being proactive versus reactive. And it's so easy to get caught in the trap of being reactive. I'm talking about like any pillar within business as business owners, as entrepreneurs or whatever, and just in life in general, right? We can get in this trap of being reactive and the busyness of stuff. So I really like that. Being proactive and thinking steps ahead is a skill, and having that think time, in your schedule. We talk about think time sometimes in the pod too, will help you, plan for that as well. So yeah, I think that's great. Have you ever promoted a VA into a leadership or operations role?
Yes, all the time. It's definitely something you should do. So, who's going to be editing this podcast? Hi, In. So, In started
Okay.
out with me actually with our property management, hiring him on. And he has had a ton of roles in our companies in the past, but he's now our marketing manager, right? He's been with us as long as I have, I guess, going on like 5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the right person in that seat, and that's where he really excels, and we love him in that seat, and he thrives in that seat. And so yeah, that's honestly like why I'm so passionate about hiring VAs, because I see so many times people putting VAs in a box of data entry or cold calling. And the thing you have to realize is just because somebody's in another country doesn't like limit their capabilities. They have just as much varied skills and opportunities as anybody here in the United States. And I think I see so many people hiring VAs in these boxes of like personal assistants or, just doing data entry or just doing cold calling. And they're just people like everybody else, and they have skills and they have passions, and they can do just as much as anybody else can. And you would be surprised, like, In is incredible. The value that he brings to the team is incredible. And if we would have had that limiting mindset that I see a lot of people have when it comes to VAs, we would have missed out on a ton of value add that he's brought to the team. Like, he's invaluable to our team. And so I think that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I want to see more people utilizing like the full spectrum of what hiring globally can really be for their company, because the possibilities are limitless.
Yeah, absolutely. And now is our marketing director, but you are right. He has worn a lot of hats along with all of us as we've grown and had different businesses and whatnot. But yeah, he does a tremendous job. He does all of the marketing for fixed lending. And obviously, yes, he will be editing this podcast. So, hey, Ian, we'll have to have you on. So what's a mistake you made with VAs that others can avoid?
Yeah, that's I've had some VA mistakes for sure. I think having too much trust too soon. I think that's kind of something that just me as part of my character is something that I struggle with just in life in general, but having too much trust too soon. So trust with anybody you hire should build over time, right? And there can sometimes be a little bit of a high when you've had an interview with someone and there's just a connection, right? There's some sort of just personality connection that's hard to describe. And you're like, that's the person I want. And that's another mistake I made is hiring based off of that. Yes, there should be some sort of connection. Yes, you should vibe, but you've got to check that. And that's where the assessments come in really handy. The multiple interview rounds come in really handy. Even bringing someone else in from your team or a mentor or somebody you trust to like be a second voice for you if you don't have a partner or somebody like that can be really helpful because I've hired based off of energy and I regretted that hire a lot. And so that's definitely one mistake. And then, putting too much trust too soon, you've got to earn and develop that trust. So trust but verify is a great place to start.
Yeah.
I like to use Toggle for time tracking and I like to see, how much time people are spending on different tasks. And if I feel like they're spending way too much time on a task, I'm going to talk to them about it and be like, hey, this really should have only taken you 2 hours, but it took you 6. Like, what is going on? Did it really take you 6? Do we need to do some training? Are you adjusting your timesheets? Like, what is happening here? And the micromanagement goes down after they've been with you for a year, 2 years, or whatever, right? You've built that trust, what they're capable of, but they've got to earn that, right? And so you've got
For
to
sure.
be a manager. Like you have to manage people and it's not fun. You just want to be the fun person all of the time and vibe and do all of that stuff. And then you've got to bring up issues when they happen. Like if they did something wrong on a task, don't just ignore it. Say, hey, I went ahead and fixed this because I saw it, but next time make sure you double check this specific thing you got wrong. Like bring it up because they need that feedback, right? It's not just for you, it's for them. If you don't give them any feedback, they don't know what they're doing and what they need to do. So just making sure like you're actually investing in all of those things is really important.
Love it. That's great. Okay. We're going to do something fun now. We haven't done this on the podcast yet, but I'm trying to extract as much information out of you as possible because you have a lot of information. We're going to do a rapid fire round. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, but you have to answer as quickly as humanly possible.
Oh no.
And we'll do 4 questions. Easy questions though.
I'm not the right person for this. I'm an overthinker, but we'll do our best.
No, you got it. All right, ready? Rapid fire round. Favorite VA software tool?
It would be Toggle. Time tracking, super important.
Best country to hire from and why?
Philippines. It's the only one I've hired from. I'm going to be honest. I love it. Well, I've hired from Mexico. Honestly, either one's great.
No, that's all you
I
get.
don't like the favorite.
VA red flag to run from.
VA red flag to run from. Moving jobs too frequently.
Good. Number 1 book you'd recommend on delegation or productivity?
You're making me think of titles off the top of my head. I'm terrible at that, Joel.
Who, Not How, Donald Miller. My favorite.
Yeah, I'm going to let you take that one, Joel. I can't remember titles off the top of my head.
Awesome. That was fun. I wish I had the bell hung up. I just moved.
That was terrifying, Joel. You should have warned me that was happening.
That was perfect. That was fun. All right. So if someone listening is doing everything themselves and feels stuck, what would you tell them about the power of hiring a VA?
It is amazing to have someone who is moving in the same direction as you, who is there to support you and help you achieve your goals, because that is the goal of anyone you bring on your team. And so if you're doing everything yourself, yes, it's overwhelming and just time consuming is a big problem. But even more than that, just emotionally and mentally, you don't have somebody moving along with you, right? And aside from just being able to get things off your plate, having someone that can move along with you and support you and help you grow and expand or achieve whatever goals you're looking for, that is the most valuable thing you can get from delegating.
That's awesome. Olivia, thank you so much. So much gold in this episode. Really, really appreciate your time. And we're going to leave a ton of information in the show notes, a ton of value add. And it's just been an absolute pleasure. So thank you all, and we'll catch you next time.